Now, for our listeners, uh, Drew has tremendous experience here as a development consultant, zoning and land use strategist, and mentor. And so I'd like to take the time to welcome Andrew Overton to today's episode of the Real Estate Mavericks. Welcome, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Bill.
Excellent, excellent. So, Drew, you've got over 2 decades of navigating zoning and land use. Now, that's a side of real estate that most people don't fully understand, but it absolutely defines success or failure in new development or redevelopment. Um, and I did start renovating properties myself years ago, and I quickly realized you can have a great deal, but if the zoning is not working, nothing works.
Yeah, it's a deal killer.
Can you
100%.
comment more on that? I mean, that's an essential part of any real estate deal.
It is. And, I advise my clients and students both to really focus on this up front. It's not something you want to get involved with on the back end. You don't want to start your deal. We talk a lot about the differences between quantitative analysis, which is, does a deal pencil financially?
Mhm.
Does it make sense? And then the qualitative analysis. So the quantitative, anybody can do, right? So it's
Mhm. Mhm.
numbers, it's plugging numbers in. But the qualitative analysis, which is still, you're dealing with data, is the unknowns.
Yeah.
So you can
Mhm.
read the zoning code, and even if it's a very simple code, there's a lot hidden in there. And so that's the
Mhm.
qualitative side, and that's dealing with people side of things.
Mhm.
It's dealing with community groups, civic associations. Even if you have something that comes close in the
Mhm.
zoning code to being by right, if you're not by right, you may have a problem.
Okay, very good. So that's the essentials. Let's start at the beginning here. How did you get into zoning and land use? It's a pretty specialized corner of real estate, and you have worked with Fortune 500 companies
Yep.
on wireless infrastructure. But how did you get into the zoning end of real estate, one of the most important niches out there?
Yeah. Well, it was through my work with the wireless industry, and it was really, I drew the short straw. I worked for a small real estate firm that happened to have an arm that worked with wireless infrastructure.
Hmm.
I, at the time, thought the way cell phones worked was that just went up in the sky. I didn't even know what a cell tower was, and I
Hmm.
drew the short straw and got to the opportunity to manage a project building out 100 cell towers for T-Mobile in northern Ohio,
Hmm.
and that's how I got into it, and I became a guru really quickly in zoning
Hmm. Hmm.
because I was able to get, or my team, I should say, were able to get 103 sites approved through zoning. And if you know anything about cell towers, they're the most
Sure,
hated
sure.
things by municipalities um, when you try to get
Hmm.
them zoned. But I was apparently exceptional at it because we got these approved in a very short time, and our project came in 4 months ahead
Hmm.
of schedule and $17 million under budget. Now, how,
Nice.
Bill, did I become an expert on this?
Hmm.
I became an expert because most every single one of my sites was by right. So I wasn't really good at zoning. It just happened that we were in an area that it was easy. Actually, the
Yeah,
only
yeah,
area that it was ever easy. And I've done planning and zoning 26 states
yeah, yeah.
out of the United States, and that was the easiest project. So I looked like a hero from the beginning, and kept getting
Hmm.
hired to do
Yeah.
that. I started Creative Land Strategies just a couple of years after that, and
Hmm.
just stayed with it. And we got well known because we would pursue the hard to get sites, right? So we worked extensively In coastal areas, for instance, Long Island, New York, the Hamptons was one of our areas,
Yeah.
coastal
Yeah.
Connecticut, Massachusetts, areas like that. The hard to
So,
get sites where you're looking at a 2-year
yeah.
zoning process that's likely going to end up in litigation at the end.
Hmm. And so when did you decide to bring your expertise in that to smaller developers? And how did that pencil out for you? And what was that like?
So we wanted to move away from wireless infrastructure. There was a time where we felt like it had peaked as far as business opportunity, and we wanted to expand. And we started out with convenience stores,
Hmm.
if you will, gas stations.
Yeah.
And again, because we were known for getting the challenging sites, nobody wants a gas station, just like nobody wants to see a cell tower. And the working with smaller developers, and really how we kind of morphed into working with entry level developers, where we had extensive work with a company that did self-directed IRAs. I don't know if you're
Hmm.
familiar with what those are, or if your audience
Hmm.
is familiar, but it's basically you're able to take your IRA and move that into what's called a self-directed IRA. So traditional IRA is generally stocks and bonds,
Hmm.
what have you.
Sure.
Uh, Self-directed IRA gives you the opportunity to use your money for real estate development. There are some other
Right.
aspects that
Correct.
you can use it for.
Yeah.
Um, and so a lot of people that we worked with in that environment um, wanted to get into real estate development. And we started consulting with them. And over
Yeah.
the years, what we found was we spent more time teaching them the basics of real estate development. A lot of people see, I don't know, I guess, ads on the internet where, real estate's get rich quick, right? Fix and
Hmm.
flip. You can buy your first multifamily unit in 3 days, that type of stuff. And we take the different approach with that, because what we found was our clients needed education, but they were paying us a substantial amount of money to teach them the basics. We weren't really consulting with them, we were teaching them and hand
Hmm.
holding the whole way.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so that's what led us to start with the real estate education portion
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. So
Um,
I mean, you've built a career around simplifying zoning
yes.
with, I'm sure, a ton of work inside there to simplify. Well, why is this zoning in particular an area that's so misunderstood? And yeah, what are the main misconceptions by the public or by beginning investors?
Yeah. So it's a good question. I think part of it is we go back to the quantitative versus qualitative analysis. There are parts of real estate development that are simple, right? So figuring out the finance is simple. Construction, it's a science. You know how long it's going to take you to pour footers, or how long it's going to take cement to cure. These types of things are all quantifiable. The challenge with zoning is it's not across the board. I think on Long Island alone, there were, you had 9 townships and, various cities and all this, and every code is different. And
Mm.
what every jurisdiction will allow is different.
Hmm.
It's a good example right now. There's a movement afoot in the U.S. We know we have a housing crisis, right?
We do.
And we know where the challenge lies. California has done something with a new state law that's made building an accessory dwelling unit, or putting multiple units on a smaller parcel, by right, you're able to do it. That changes the game. because getting all the way to building permit from your initial submission in California could be years, literally years. So it's difficult for those things to pencil out for a developer at all, much less trying to do something where you're building workforce housing or affordable housing. And so a lot of jurisdictions, yeah, they encourage affordable housing. Hey, this is what we need. But their code still doesn't allow it. Their code hasn't caught up with, yeah, we need it. So you may get a break in the speed with which your application moves through, but there's really nothing that shows that there's a benefit to building workforce housing or affordable housing. And that's changing. And it's changing not just in California, which probably has the worst case of lapse in housing or affordability.
Sure, it's everywhere.
In small towns as well. There's a town in Virginia, Mountain Laurel, that just changed their code to make certain types of housing by right. So you just go straight to permit, no zoning. So you're seeing that movement. It's the yes in my backyard movement that you're seeing across the country right now.
Most people see zoning as a barrier, and frankly, it is kind of a barrier for sure. But you treat zoning as an advantage. Can you explain that in a few sentences here?
Yeah, well, we focus when we're looking at zoning and we're looking at it up front. The same way you look at a pro forma up front, we're checking the zoning. We look at the zoning, we talk to a planner, we see what else has been going through, what's been stopped in that particular jurisdiction. And if we know what we're planning on building or what we want to build, the first thing we do is find the civic association that's associated with where we're going to build. And we sit down with them and we have a discussion. And what I like to say we do is we make it their idea. Because if you have the community on board, right, and they've weighed in and they feel heard and they feel like they're a part of it, you're going to get approved. It's going to move through, but you have to build those relationships. And I think that's where a big disconnect is with young developers and even large scale developers.
Okay. Working with the public and truly not just window dressing, letting them have their say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And early, you have it early before you even design.
Yeah. Drew, how thick does your skin have to be to handle this?
I think it's kindness.
Okay.
Honestly, it's when you genuinely go in and ask for help. People want to help. People want to be involved with it. And so I have seen firms go in, carrying a big stick, thinking that, they don't need the help. They don't need the approval. They're going to win in court. And they take that attitude from the very beginning. And look, some of these larger developers, they have the money to do that. They have the money to fight it out. Smaller developers, young developers don't. You don't have, if you're going to end up in litigation, your deal is dead. So, bring it. And, one of the things I think people miss as young developers, small developers, you're going to work usually in a particular area, in a particular community. And that community may be, I have a client that works in Charlotte and it's 5 different jurisdictions that they're working out of. But they're still in the same general community of Charlotte, North Carolina. Your reputation is everything. Your relationships are everything. Planning departments talk to each other. I don't know. They have like a weird little planning department club, and they do planning department things. Yeah. And, you want to be somebody that they want to work with, that they trust what you're coming in with, what you're presenting to them. And they trust you. And, all of that spreads. And so as a young developer starting out, you need to make sure that you're building those relationships in the right way. And, we have a certificate program for real estate development. And somebody asked me, why, why do you have an ethics course as part of your real estate development course? And I get it. Nobody's going to come and buy that course on its own for ethics, but for part of a certificate program that's 9 different courses, the ethics portion is wildly important, because
Yeah.
if people find out that you are an unethical developer, you will get nothing done. And let's be honest, Bill, I mean, there are people that just find themselves with a lot of money, and a lot of money can lead to arrogance. And they are arrogant and they just think, hey, I want to build this here, and that's what I'm going to do. And you're not, as a developer, you're not just building a building. It's not just construction. You're, as a developer, you're building communities.
Yeah.
Even if you're focusing on industrial, you're still putting something in that a community is then going to be built around. And so you really need to be aware of the importance of what you're doing.
Nice. How can a new developer quickly assess whether a deal is viable from a zoning perspective? I mean, outwardly, or you get a commercial building and you want to put it in a commercial area, but there's a whole lot more to that than matching those two. How can someone quickly assess whether a deal is viable from a zoning perspective?
From zoning perspective, it's code. So you have a piece of property and you have an idea of what you want to build. So let's say you want to do multifamily, and the piece of property that you're looking at, because gosh, it's just a bargain for this property, and you think that the multifamily is going to work well in there. You just go to the code initially, find out what your property is zoned, right? And if you're in R3 that allows multifamily, then you can proceed to the next step. If you're in an R1 that just allows single family, you go from 40 units down to 8 units very quickly.
Yeah.
And then the deal doesn't pencil at all for you. Maybe it still does if you want to do the 8, but if you're stuck on multifamily, then you have to realize you've got an issue, and that may, be workable. You may just need to do a rezoning. And I say you may just need, that can be something that's very simple. If you're taking a look at the area, which is why boots on the ground is really good, and you see other multifamily nearby, then you may have a community that's willing to help you with that change of zone. But you don't want to get into variances and change zones if you don't have to.
Well, where are the hidden opportunities here that most developers miss? Newer developers in particular, excuse me. Oh dear.
You okay?
Pollen, excuse me. So, yeah. Where are the hidden opportunities here? Thank you, Drew. Yeah.
They can be anywhere. And this is where data analytics becomes crucially important. And I'm going to say that this is important across the board. We teach a course in data analytics, an introductory course in data analytics for real estate. And as part of that course, you're learning how to use like the US Census to get information. And it's understanding the data that you're pulling, understanding how to use a GIS map to see what's going on within a municipality or within a jurisdiction. And so it's the research is what creates opportunity. Data is what creates opportunity for you. If you can see trends and get ahead of them, right? So if you can see that a particular zip code is growing, and this is the type of workforce that's going into that zip code, and this is what their salaries are, and this is how much money they make, and this is the type of work that they do, and they need schools, and you're going to see that a school is coming in,
Mm.
in the future.
Mhm, mhm,
So that's what you want to look for. You want to look for what's happening, what's being planned out for a particular area. And that's where you're
mhm.
going to find opportunities, right? Now, you can find opportunities in an already established area, but it's going to cost you more. What you want to find is where are things growing and what
Mm.
can you do to support that growth? And does that mean, hey, we're going to be converting agricultural land into residential? And do you want to get involved early on and help that residential along by having part of that zoned multifamily, and that part that you're getting zoned multifamily is your property? So it's
Mm.
all about the data and it's all about the
Yeah.
research.
Mm.
Just finding a
Mhm.
broker that's got a parcel for sale. Look, yeah, maybe it pencils. Maybe you can do something with that. Absolutely. And I think that happens all the time. But I think if you want to look at where's the opportunity, you got to look at the growth. And right now in the Southeast, um, I'm in Virginia at the moment and do a lot of work in North Carolina. Our offices are in North Carolina. But these are areas that are growing,
Mm. Mhm, mhm.
and we see that. So it's figuring out where is that growth headed? What
Yeah.
part? Are you going south of Charlotte into South Carolina? Great. If you are, then there's opportunity there. Figure out what's going to get built and build around it.
Mm. A big part of development is dealing with communities and the public hearings.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what does it really take to get projects approved beyond the numbers and beyond, the obvious? Okay, it's a commercial project going in a commercial area.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you said acting classes might be more valuable than a law degree.
Yeah.
Is that part of the process? And how important is storytelling when you're presenting to zoning boards? And at the core of this, what is separating approvals from rejections? That's a big question out there for you, but go ahead and take
Yeah.
a crack at it.
Well, I think storytelling is always important. And what you're doing has to be compelling. It needs to be a compelling story, particularly if you're getting pushback. Now, let's
Yeah,
say we've done everything we can do to work with the Civic Association, and they're still not 100% on board. They're not really
yeah.
fighting you, but they're not supporting you. And you're going to a planning board and you've got to tell a story. And being comfortable to do that is wildly important. I
Hmm.
have found that even though I am an attorney, there are areas that you go in and you don't want to be the attorney. You got to know your audience, right? There's a big difference between Fulton
Hmm.
County in Atlanta and Gwinnett County, and
Yep, yep.
who is your audience. And so it's important that you understand that. And then you need to have the data. I'm going to keep going back to data because I think it's what tells the story. That's what you're trying to do, is tell a compelling story. So let's just say you have a difficult site and what you want to do is not particularly welcomed. Well, you're going to want to do everything you can to make it compelling. So we use an economic impact analysis, and you don't see a lot of companies using that. Um, but it tells the story of what you're doing on that property and how it impacts the community. What's the
Sure.
benefit to the
Yeah.
community?
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
recently did a study for a client that was actually, it was the municipality, and it was a data center story, right? So a data center wants to come in there and the community didn't really want it. And so the data center was pitching of what a benefit it was to the community. And we ran an economic impact analysis, and we already knew the answer because it wasn't the first one that we've done. Is, yeah, there is an initial impact during construction that has an impact on the community, right? Because they're hiring local people to build that out. So there's your positive economic impact. But down the line, it employs very few people. There isn't much of a positive benefit for the community with that. So you want to be able to tell the story in support of whatever it is that you're doing. And if you can't make that story compelling, you're not going to get an approval.
Simple as that, eh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The working with the community is key to the entire process.
Yeah.
Right. What did you learn early on that most developers just don't realize?
Well, I think the most important thing when you're looking at a development is you can do your preliminary research, right? And you and I've talked about this before, but
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at the zoning, right? You're looking at the properties available. What are the prices? What are your cap rates? These types of things that you can look at up front. But if you really want to know what you can do in an area, is you have to talk, you have to communicate. So you have to speak with the neighbors, you have to speak with the civic associations, you got to speak with the planning departments. And this is what we talk about, the difference between quantitative analysis, which is the quantitative side being everything you can boil down to numbers, right? Anything
Mm-hmm.
boil down to a number. Whereas the qualitative side is everything else. It's all still data. We're still talking about data analytics, but it's a different type of data. And it's probably the most overlooked aspect. I have a personal um, dislike in the professional world of engineers that have MBAs.
Oh,
So it's just
okay.
it's not vehement and it's not personal, but I found, particularly when you're doing large scale projects, if
Mm.
you have an engineer with an MBA, they have a spreadsheet, which we all have in real estate development. We're all working with spreadsheets on one level or another. But they have a spreadsheet in which every single box needs to be checked, ticked. If
Mm.
they put in their spreadsheet that you're going to have zoning done in 3 months, and you explain to them it's not a 3 month process, that it's likely going to be 2 years or a year, whatever it may be, they can't get out of their head that it needs to be done in 3 months. And they're going to be pushing, 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 and they're going to be ignoring the reality of what it is we're doing.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
that's the
They
big
just
difference.
don't realize that. Is that human nature in general?
No,
Uh,
it's an engineer with an MBA.
okay, all righty. When did you decide to bring your expertise to smaller developers? And how did that work for you?
It really developed organically.
Mm.
I think the first time that I worked with someone that was non-Fortune 500 was clearing up some property title issues and permitting issues for a gentleman on the South Shore of Long Island in New York.
Mm.
And just decided I enjoyed doing that more than I enjoyed working with um, Fortune 500.
Okay.
There wasn't an MBA with an engineer with an MBA, driving every second of every day to hit a certain milestone, and
Mm.
people were a lot more appreciative on this level. And so I worked a lot with a company that um, did self-directed IRAs, and a
Mm.
lot of those people that went into moving their money into a self-directed IRA wanted to get into real estate development. And so that was really how we got started with working with newbies, people that just didn't really have much experience besides maybe they built their own house, but they wanted the opportunity to get into real estate development. So
Mm.
it
Okay.
helped us build a clientele from across the country. People in California that couldn't afford to develop in California were looking for, well, where can we go? And, we help them look in Ohio and Indiana and, break it
Yeah.
down from there.
Nice. So you've built a career, Andrew. You go by Drew. You prefer Drew?
Either
Uh,
one, never
yeah.
Andy.
Okay, Randy. Yeah. Yeah. But you've built a career around simplifying zoning. And
Yeah.
why is this area just so misunderstood?
Well, it's complicated,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I mean, that's the fact of the matter is it's not standard. So if you look at other aspects of real estate, what it's going to take to acquire a site, what the timeline on that's going to look like, what the finances are going to look like, right? It's pretty standard. And the same thing when you move on the other side of, entitlements and you get into construction. Well, you know how long it's going to take to put up a building within a matter of days, weather notwithstanding. Zoning, on the other hand, is far more complex. And two things that have come up recently that we should address with that is, well, we'll start with the complexity of it. Is the fact of the matter is that there can be many, many, many layers of zoning in one jurisdiction. So just because you meet a certain criteria in one aspect of the code, when you're looking at, R3 multifamily, you may not meet other aspects of the code. And so you have to digest the entire code. And this is something that's become really, in the last year, has been fascinating to watch this happen. And that's with the advent of AI taking on such popularity, and what can AI do and what it can't do with regard to real estate development. And I get emails every day, and I'm part of groups, and I get different proposals for how AI is going to help me. And I was just looking at one day before yesterday about how they're going to help me with my zoning reports. Now, I've been doing zoning reports for, close to 30 years. I'm not sure how they could help me, but the reality is, AI is not to the point where it can digest everything that's in that code. It also can't tell you what's gotten through and how it's gotten through. So if somebody's gone in for zoning and to do a multifamily and they ended up doing a change of zone or a text amendment to the code, it can't tell you everything that went in to that application and how that pushed through and the lobbying that was involved in doing that. It is a relationship business, and AI does not do relationships. It also makes a lot of mistakes. So in other aspects of our business, we use, because we are very data heavy, we use companies like CoStar and Implan we use for our economic impact analysis. And these are well-respected, well-established companies that work in data. This is data that goes into supporting my zoning application. If I need to change a zone, I'm doing an economic impact analysis, and I need to know that information is correct. And that's something that, people are saying, well, Drew, I don't need to pay for that because AI will do that for me. And I explained to them, I get it. I get what you're saying, except that it doesn't work. So I'll just say this, that our company doesn't ever use AI in anything that requires a decision. If we're on a decision-making path, we're not using AI to do that. We do use it for other aspects, but not for decision-making.
What are the biggest mistakes developers make when evaluating a site?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, challenging questions, because an experienced developer doesn't make the same mistakes that an early entry or new developer makes. But one of the differences is that if somebody that's been doing it as long as you or I have been doing it, we don't necessarily view things the same way that somebody else that's starting out is. Our risk is minimized simply because of the information we have, and particularly if you work in an area, you said you're in New Hampshire, and if that's where you focus, all the players, the game, the values, all of that is in your head because you've been doing it so long in that area, right? And so for me, working with groups from all over the country, I have to go back to directing my people to my clients to do all their due diligence up front. And it's like I said, we are data analytics heavy, and you can't skip those steps. You can't, as a new developer particularly, say, I have a feeling. Right? It has to be based on data. And I think what we're learning is that people now, and it's just been over the last year, are looking for, they'll plug into ChatGPT or Grok or whatever and say, hey, what's a good place for me to develop in this area, without knowing or understanding the data that they're actually looking for. right? So they don't know how to interpret the data, which is why, when I teach my students,
Mm.
we start with a class in data analytics. It's an intro to data analytics in real estate development.
Mm.
And so that way they learn all the data that they're going to need to use no
Mhm.
matter where they get it, but they understand why they need that data and what they're looking for in that data. So the biggest mistake is not looking at the data. There are people that go, hey, they see a piece of property, they see other things going on around it. Hey, this would be a great property to develop. How do you know?
And the dream unfolds in their
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. So I say, I don't want to crush anybody's dream, but the reality is to me, when they come to me with something and they haven't done their due diligence to understand why that's a good deal. What do they want to build there? How does it fit? Why does it fit? Why do you want it there? Who's going to buy it? Right? I mean, you got to think about marketing that property before you break ground, before you even buy it, is who's
Yeah,
that property going to?
sure. Get their exit done first.
Yeah.
So, in addition to that, how can someone quickly assess whether a deal is viable? Obviously, you can see, yeah, it's R3, it's R2, but what is the next component that someone could quickly assess whether a deal is viable from a zoning perspective?
From a zoning perspective,
From a zoning perspective.
yeah, I mean, you're if you've read the code, right, and you've gone on your GIS, you know what the layout of that is. You've got a simple site plan or whatever
Yep.
tax map record, something like that, and then the next thing you do is go to the planning department.
Okay, and start discussing.
Yeah, and you do want to do boots on the ground. You want to do a drive by of the area and figure out, if you're in a place. I have a property not far from here that the minimum lot size is an acre. Your drive by needs going to have to be more than a mile. You're going to have to see what's going on in the neighboring areas before you're looking at, well, I want to do multifamily here, and instead of doing one home per acre, you're going to do 8 per acre.
Mm-hmm.
Does it
Mm-hmm.
fit with what's going on? Have there been similar projects? I mean, this is the information you're going to get from the planner.
Yeah.
You're going to do your drive by, and if there's nothing else like it out there, you may have a challenge, particularly if you're looking
Mm.
at a change of zone. By right is always the best way to go. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
developers that are going to tell you otherwise.
Mm.
And I'm sure you've been paying attention, but there's a lot of states that are making changes,
Mm-hmm.
and some municipalities as well, to make it.
ADUs, yeah, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So California is the kind of the leader on that, but we're seeing it here. I'm in Virginia right now, and yeah, you're seeing a lot of changes that will make, you know, we know New
Mm-hmm.
Hampshire, Vermont. I just saw a rather large project in Vermont got denied last week. That would have brought a lot of workforce housing there, and you're still seeing that. And that project, my understanding, I knew the developer on that, was that it had been going on for a year and a half till it finally got to
Okay.
the vote phase. And it was very much not in my backyard.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was the denial. And we're seeing throughout the country, we're seeing a lot of yes in my backyard coming our way. So that's a
Okay.
that's a huge thing.
Yeah. Most people see zoning as a barrier, but you feel it's an advantage. Can you explain that?
Can be an advantage. It's a,
Can be.
it's certainly and it can be a barrier as well. There's no question about that. Um, Again, it's great if you work in an area where you get to know the players, planning department, the electeds, um, you know,
Mhm.
the robes even, which are the judges. So you just know what's going to happen down the line with these types of projects. And that's doing your research and data. Um, but as far as it being a benefit, I'd have to give that some real thought on how zoning is a benefit, unless it's just you happen to come across the zoning or are able to change the zoning in such a way that it benefits whatever project it is you want to do. And
Mm,
look, it's also a huge deal killer, right? Let's talk about capital expenditures.
sure.
When you get into zoning and entitlements, if you're doing a change of zone and you don't have all the stakeholders on board with you, you're sunk. Your project is probably never going to make it because it's never going to pencil out, because you're going to end up in years of zoning and litigation, and no developer wants that, nor can they afford
Nor
it.
can afford
Really,
it.
smaller developers can't afford it at all. So you got
Right.
to know what you're going to be able to do before you even start thinking about building something. You got to
I
have
mean,
that
I
approval.
kind of common sense here that, investors can use zoning knowledge to find better deals out there in their local market. Now, um, how does what other advantages can an investor have aside from specific zoning knowledge to find better deals? Can they combine that with knowledge of the market, of course?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think, Bill, I'm going to go back to the data. We
Hmm.
touched on this a little bit
Yeah.
last, is what is happening where you are. And we
Hmm.
touched on, like, I think we use Charlotte as a good example, Charlotte, North Carolina. North Carolina is booming. South Carolina is booming as far as people moving in and the need for housing. And so it's a matter of where they're going to go. So they know they're going to be building more housing. What you need to know is what's going on. Are there schools going in?
Hmm.
Who are these people that are moving in? Right? Are these people
Right.
leaving um, New York because they can't afford to live in New York anymore and they need to be in someplace more affordable with lower taxes? And so they're not six-figure incomes, you know?
Yeah.
Or are they
Hmm.
people coming down with money to burn because they sold their palace in the Northeast of a 2 bedroom, 1 bath for $1.5 million, and now they're moving down
Okay.
to Charlotte or Spartanburg or Greenville, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they've got the money to spend. So what is that going to look like? And as a developer, we're not just talking about, are you going to build multifamily, or are you going to build single family? We're also talking about, you have the opportunity to create a community. And that's
Yeah.
really exciting as a developer, that you can do that. Most of the people that I work with aren't at that level, or if they are, they've already moved on, learned everything they can from me, and we remain friends, and we talk about deals and all of that. But when you have the opportunity to design and build a whole community,
Yeah.
that's exciting. I mean, that's where
Sure.
you are the
Yeah.
conductor. All these people are, that's your orchestra that you're working with, your architects, your engineers, um, all of
Mm.
your attorneys, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But all of these people that can come together and build that. But it all comes down to doing your research and understanding who's your audience, who are you going to be building this for, why are they going to this area, and if they haven't already moved to this area, or we haven't determined that that's where they're going, um,
Yeah.
how do you drive them there?
There
So,
we go. There we go. Um, so a big part of development, it's dealing with communities, it's dealing with public hearings. What does it really take to get projects approved?
well, we're talking about anything that's not by right. So,
Hmm.
my first step is always to reach out. If you can find uh, an official civic association or an official neighborhood group, um,
Mhm.
you go with them. That's your first call, and you build that relationship. Um,
Yeah.
Generally, they're receptive. You want to make them a part of what you're doing, right? You want it to be partially their idea, right? That this is what
Sure.
they want done. They know something's going to be done, so let's make it their idea and get
Their
them.
real input, not the window dressing input.
No. I
Real
mean,
input.
it's
Yeah.
we want them to assist in the design.
Yeah.
Um, we want to take into consideration the density that they want. I mean, one of your big issues always is going to be, well, how is this going to impact traffic, right? So how many people do we want here? What about the roads? Um, Roads are a big problem. So
Yeah.
you want the buy-in from them, and then it makes every step of the process easier.
Yeah.
Because if we've got buy-in from the Civic Association, the electeds aren't going to go against that, right? So the elected
Mm-hmm.
official is not going to say to their constituents, no.
Mm-hmm.
Constituents are who put them in office, right?
Sure.
And the
Mm-hmm.
planning and zoning department, they're on board to serve the community. Protect the community, yes, but serve the community. And if the Civic
Yeah.
Association and the electeds are on board, there's really no reason for the planning department not to work with us to get it done, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
mean they have to accept everything that we're putting forward, but this is all a bit of a dance, right? And it's
Yeah.
all requires effective communication.
Mm-hmm.
It is why AI,
Effective communication. Yeah.
real estate development is AI proof.
Mm. Okay.
AI can't put all these things together, and it
Sure.
can't communicate. It can't do any of these things. And for a lot of professionals right now, they're looking around saying, "Well, this is scary," right? I read an
Mm.
article, Bill, about how in 7 years surgery is going to be done by AI and robots. Well, that's
Mm.
scary, but not unreasonable to think it's true. And
Yeah. Yeah.
the reality is, with real estate development, any business where you have to maintain relationships or build relationships or seek out relationships,
Mm.
you need to be good at it. You need to be effective at that end of it, because the rest of it, the quantitative side of it, that can all be done,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the qualitative
Data.
side of this, that's the
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah, and you said acting classes might be more valuable than a law degree.
That's
And
true.
what do you mean by that?
So
Exactly.
if you take a look at my career, I've
Yeah.
worked everywhere from, Northern Ohio, not great places near Cleveland, to the east end of Long Island, meaning the Hamptons, areas like that. All across this country, 26 different states I've done hearings in, and everybody's different. So
Mm.
you don't want to send a $500 an hour attorney into some place where nobody wears a suit, right?
Sure.
These types of things. So it's being able to know your audience, being able to understand who you're talking,
Yes. Yes.
how to
Yes.
adapt to that, and then basically, theater and acting just gives you uh, a boost up on your communication skills anyway. And
Your
observation is
expression.
a huge part
Yeah.
of that. Whereas law school, so not to diminish, the lawyers out there, as I am one, it doesn't teach you. It teaches you about the law. It doesn't teach you about people and how to
Yeah.
talk to people. It teaches you how to hammer them with the law, and that doesn't
Okay.
work uh, if
Yeah.
the law is not in your favor. So,
Right.
yeah.
How important is storytelling when presenting to zoning boards?
Oh, 100%.
Storytelling.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Everything we're doing is building up to tell a
Mm.
compelling story, right?
Yeah.
Who's coming in, why we're doing this, the who,
The
why,
realistic story. Yeah.
all of this. Yeah. And then, part of that is that when we're doing particularly like a change of zone or something where we have to do the economic impact analysis, that in and of itself tells a compelling story. It says, hey, this is the impact we're going to have on your community. And
Mm.
this is all positive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We did an economic impact analysis for a community in East Tennessee with regard to a data center, right?
Yeah.
And the initial impact of a data center is really strong because it takes a long time to get it built. So you got a lot of jobs up front on that. And so it looks great for that first 2 years that you're putting that in. But then as that time goes on, you realize the economic impact on the community is virtually nothing
Hmm.
after construction. Right? So what is the benefit? So you want to be able to tell the story of, hey, not only is we're going to have this benefit while we build out, here's what the businesses are going to be contributing tax wise. This is
Yeah.
what's coming into your community. This is what sells it to, a planning board or a, town
Yeah.
board, all that.
Yes. Yes. Um, so at the core of it, what separates approvals from rejections? What's the simplest answer to that?
Oh, I don't know that there's a particularly simple answer, Bill.
Okay.
But really, Bill, I mean, if you take the culmination of what we just discussed,
Okay.
it's the communication, it's the storytelling, it's putting all that together
Yeah.
and having a compelling project. There
Sure.
are projects that you're going to look at, particularly as a new developer, and say, well, I don't know why they wouldn't want this. Well, they're going to tell you why they don't want it. And if you insist on going forward, you're not going to get it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a waste of time. So, play it smart, do your
Yeah.
research, understand the data. If you want to, Bill, you can send your listeners to Creative Land Strategies under our
Okay.
education component. We do have a certificate program in real estate development. We also offer right now, just for free, is that introduction to data analytics for real estate
Hmm.
development. So they have that.
Uh, in line with that here, when evaluating a property, what should developers be looking for beyond the obvious numbers here? I mean,
I'm going to, you say we're not going to look at, the simple numbers, we're going to look at what's around that property. So you're going to look at what are your additional costs. So you're going to look at your utility run, right?
mm, yeah,
Because that can be wildly expensive. What do the roads look like? What size of
hmm,
project are you looking for? Are you going to need a lot of road work, a lot of engineering with regard to that? That gets very expensive. It can add on to your cost exponentially doing that versus, existing roads with
yeah,
just adding access. So utility poles, uh, traffic and engineering, those
yeah,
things add up. They're not insurmountable, but they're certainly things that you take into account up front and
hmm,
figure out whether or not this is worth it. At the end of the day, you got to know if you're going to make money off of this.
yeah,
And
yeah. Well, what hidden upside signals, are there any, that might signal a strong opportunity that most people fail to see? Uh,
yeah, so
yeah.
if you see, and again, this is you've got to do the research, but I think we touched on this last week. Is you're getting on the census website, and it gives you all the information you could possibly need about down to the specific zip code, right?
Hmm.
And in some areas, you can get even more specific than that on paid services. But just as a free service with the census, you get down to the zip code area, you can see who's coming in, what the change is. Are we seeing a rise up?
Yeah,
Did we see it fall off? Did we see growth over a period of 2 years? And then all of a
sure.
sudden this year, it's falling off. And you're going to see you got development projects in place. They're moving forward. They got permits, right?
Yeah,
They're not counted in the existing um, housing because they've gotten permits and they're not built yet. So if you see that there's been this growth and then you pull the permits that are out there and you see, well, we've got
mm,
2,000 units coming in, and all
coming
of
in.
a sudden, we're seeing that the number of people coming in is going down. What looked like a great opportunity is no longer a great opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. So it's mostly building momentum, identifying areas that are building that momentum,
Yeah.
and all the signals are up. Okay. yeah, then now you've got a big focus here on education and mentoring. You went through where people can find you to get
Yeah.
more education on this.
Yeah.
And why is that important for you? Having
What
the
we found that we were spending a lot of time doing, because we're not an inexpensive organization to work with on an
Mhm.
hourly basis, and that's what most of our projects we work on are hourly basis. Um, we spent a lot of time teaching people basics, just the bare basics,
Yeah,
and we didn't find that particularly compelling after the years.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and so, what we wanted to do was put together a program. And we also, as we started to research this, because people would ask us, hey, Drew, I got an invitation to do this seminar, right? It's only $7,000 for the weekend, right? And I say, what are you hoping to learn? And they're like, oh, I'm going to learn everything there is to know about development. I'm like, you're not going to learn that in a weekend. So,
yeah, sure.
and $7,000 is a lot of money that you could be putting towards a project.
Yeah,
Um, so we looked around and
yeah.
we saw that there were some schools out there. Um, MIT
Mm.
has a real estate school, all this, but they're expensive. And I'm not even talking about the university program. I'm talking about like just a certificate program through them.
Yeah.
And so we decided we wanted to come up with something compelling, a certificate program that would cover every aspect of real estate development from start to finish. We offer the initial introduction to data analytics for real estate development because it's our belief that no matter what you do, whether you take our course or not, you need to understand these basics because just what
Yeah.
we're talking about,
Just got to have it.
you got to
Mhm.
know. You got to know what that
Mhm.
information is. You got to know how to get it. Um,
So is that how newer developers then can shorten the learning curve here? Or are
Absolutely.
there other ways?
No, well, so there's a traditional way of becoming a real estate developer, which is um, completely non-traditional, right? I mean, it's people get into it for all sorts of different reasons, and they live and they learn, and some
Mm.
of them, just start hanging around like CREA meetings, commercial real
Yeah.
estate, to meet people, and because it is a relationship business. But as far as there just being a one-stop place where you can take 10 weeks, learn everything you need to know about it, and then go from there.
Mm.
Prepares you not just to do it on your own, but it prepares you to get into a working environment where you understand all the moving pieces, right? So you need to know
Jump right in.
what all these
Mm.
people do, right? Here's the architect's job. This is where it starts and stops. This is how you manage it. Here's the engineers you're going to need to work with, and you're going to need to understand what they do and how they
Mm.
do it and how to talk to them, right? So that's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
critical is these relationships you're going to have because you're in charge of everybody. You need to
Yeah.
know
Mm.
everything. You don't have to know how to do architectural drawings, but you have to know how to communicate what you do and don't like and how to fix it and what the timeline is and negotiate the contracts on these and change orders and these types of things
Mm.
that are just come up that you may not know what to do because
Yeah.
you've never seen it before. Because the reality is, real estate development, and this is a critical component of our course, is this is not get rich quick
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's just not. It's
Mm.
tough. So
Sure.
I see these things where it's like, oh, buy your first multifamily in 3 days, and it's like, I don't believe you. Like I just like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I just don't think that's true.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the same thing with development. Development is a challenge. It's time consuming. There are aspects of it that, man, I to be honest, Bill, one of the reasons I do what I do is I didn't want to raise money.
Right.
You
Right.
know, it's exhausting, right? And
Hmm.
you can spend 4 months, 5 months working on that deal, getting it close to done. And you think you're there, you're at the altar, and they're like, nah, I found someone better, you know. So
Mm.
so that to me is just something that
Yeah.
wasn't fun. There are, depending upon the area that you're in, when you're dealing with banks, that's a
Yeah.
whole nother aspect of this is how do you deal with banks? How do you raise money? How do you, um,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But the banks are like, I just want to do a deal with traditional financing from a bank. And they're like, no, we're not doing that this month. Probably next quarter we'll have some money available for that. Come back to us then and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's just that's the complicated side of this.
Yeah. Could you share a story as a zoning expert
Uh-huh.
where zoning either made or broke a deal without getting naming too many names here? But if you could share a
Oh,
story with the importance of what you do,
um,
it either made it or broke it.
I mean, I can tell you countless stories of it breaking it. Um,
Mm,
I can tell
tough
you
field.
a story. Yeah, well, it's just you walk away, right? Like you don't meet any criteria of the code. What you're asking for is you need a height variance, you need a lot variance, you need a setback variance, you need all this, and you know, my client would say, "Well, we need to try," and I'd say,
Oh,
"Okay." Like I don't know why.
why?
But I'll tell you an interesting story was I was doing a project for a company that had, and I won't get into so many details on it, but they had a number of sites. These were cell sites that were not permitted, um,
Oh,
not
oh,
permitted, and not permitted. So we were doing
yeah.
uh, a program where we were going through to try to legalize these and get them zoning approval and permits. And I had a site, and this was in East Hampton, New York,
Oh
and
my.
it was one antenna, one panel antenna. You've seen a cell tower antenna, just one antenna nailed to a wooden utility pole, standard pole that was already in place for electric, um,
Yeah.
and one small box, one line coming down from the antenna to one small box that was then had an extension cord running. So you wouldn't call it a full cell site, but what it was in the world of telecommunications, it was what they call a license saver. So it had to have been turned on in order for the client to keep their license
I see.
from the FCC.
Like a placeholder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Licensing.
So, so we went through zoning. I took 6 experts with me. So a health and safety expert, a planning expert, a radio frequency engineer, um, planning engineer, myself, and an attorney.
Mm,
So 6 people, and it's expensive, right? Experts are expensive. Um,
yeah.
Something to know, kids, when you're doing development, the experts cost.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, structural engineer as well, and so we're just trying to legalize this site, not put up a new one. And
Yeah.
I'm on my 3rd hearing there,
Okay.
and they say, well, we need you to come back. And my response was, it is one antenna nailed to a wooden pole with one cord going down and plugged down. So I'm not coming back. So you can deny us or you can approve it. And at this point, we'll either go to court or we'll walk away. I don't know
Mm,
what that's going to be, but we're not coming back. So 3 hearings from in front of the same board.
sure.
There's no more information to be had. So
Yeah. Yeah.
this is it. This is all the information there is for you.
And it's just a rod nailed to a wooden pole.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the thing. And we ended up from that. I ended up having my biggest business failure stemmed from that,
Hmm. Hmm.
which was we left that and we stayed out. We all lived in the city in New York, um, but we stayed out in the Hamptons and said we got to come up with something that we can't say no to. And So we turned a sailboat into a cell tower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Uh,
then that's, something, here's something good to know, Bill. They loved it.
they loved it.
Town
They
of East
loved
Hampton came back and said, why didn't somebody come and do this before?
it.
Let me make sure that was East Hampton. Yeah, it's East Hampton.
Yeah,
Why didn't somebody come and do this before? Like this
I
is
see.
because the reality was, Bill, like you look around, there's a bunch of marinas with sailboats, so kind of made sense.
It fit right in.
Yeah. And so
Exposed. Yeah.
this is the story of how we went from here's a failure to they were allowing us to do that by right. Even though it wasn't in the code, we built it, we put it out there, and they allowed it to stay.
They loved it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of changes are you seeing in zoning and land use today as we speak here?
Well, we touched on it a little earlier. We're seeing a lot of changes coming in um, where there were mandates for affordable housing. Mandates all over the place, all over the country. There were mandates for affordable housing, except that they didn't do anything to change the code to make affordable housing more accessible.
Right.
And so that's a big failure of zoning, and it's a big failure of community.
Yeah.
There were areas. I had a long conversation with somebody in Atlanta dealing with Fulton County, and there weren't any per se benefits to building affordable housing, except that the planning department would give you favorable treatment, meaning what it may take them 6 months to review for someone else because it's affordable housing, they'll do it much quicker. But there wasn't
Okay.
really anything that sped the process officially. Um, as far as
Yeah.
that goes, there wasn't anything that really knocked off any of the fees, which can be, let's be honest, they're ridiculous. What building
Hmm.
permit fees are anymore. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
to me,
Off the
um,
charts now.
it's insane, and it's such it doesn't seem like such a huge percentage of your project in its entirety, but it's a huge amount of money. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that they just kind of figured out, well, we're going to take this percentage, and apply it. Well, things are already crazy expensive to try to build, right?
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Um, but what we are starting to see, and I did a post about this, a blog post about this just the other day, is that the yes in my backyard movement is really taken on um, a life of its own over the last year.
That's a change.
It
Yeah.
is, and it was something that we would on LinkedIn talk
Hmm.
about, like, oh, they're talking about doing this here, they're talking about doing this here, and we
Hmm.
started this year to actually see changes to the codes, and even here in Virginia, um, where I am right now, the town of Mountain Laurel, a small town, changed their code to open it up for accessory dwelling units, no
Yeah.
longer single family, on these lots,
Yeah.
do multifamily. And that's really the only way to get costs down, is for us to simply build more and just change the dynamic of these neighborhoods. And the other thing I
So you're seeing the NIMBY evolving into the YIMBY.
YIMBY, yeah,
Okay.
definitely. And
Wow.
the other
Yeah, that
aspect of
is a big
this,
change.
that people that left or are leaving places like New York, um, Boston, which I'm sure you know well, New Hampshire, and places like that, cities that have a great deal of walkability, um, people are accustomed to that. One of the biggest, I think, the largest complaint of people that relocate from uh, large cities that have walkability to southern cities that have no walkability is the fact that they now spend so much time in their car commuting
Right.
to do anything. You got to take your car to the grocery store. You got to take your car to do this, take your car to do that. So I think something interesting for developers, a lot of them are already on it, but you're seeing a lot more interest in um, transportation hubs, and
Yeah.
where you see transportation being more and more accessible. And Atlanta is a great example of some place that's really focused on developing around MARTA stops. Um,
Mm. Hmm. Hmm.
and you've already seen that in the Northeast. Like that's how it was built. It was designed for that. Uh,
Yeah.
but in other places, it hasn't been. And you're seeing with
Mhm.
kind of the change of the dynamics, you're seeing, people want to ride their bike, they want to walk,
Yeah.
want to do those things. And, something interesting to look at. I just did a project the other day um, where we were looking at the bike paths. Like that was the level that we got down to was
Yeah.
where can you go safely on your bike in this area and
With your family,
around it.
with, yeah,
Yeah.
it's so important these days, to have that ability in the cities as well,
Yeah.
to really green up our cities. Green's not exactly the right word, but to make them more family friendly
Yeah.
and accessible everywhere for
And so
walking,
that's one of the
biking.
we teach people how to use a GIS system. I don't remember what jurisdiction we were in, but you can get just that layer of, the bus, the bicycle, and the walking trails, and take everything off of there so you can see exactly where you can get um, without having to
Hmm.
get into your car and think about building that type of community and where you can
Right.
build in those areas. And again, that goes back to that's in our data analytics course.
There we go.
These things that people need to really focus on as tools
Mhm.
when they're trying to figure out what it is they want to do.
Well, Andrew, you've proven your leadership in the field, and you've given us a really good overview of the challenges and some of the opportunities here in zoning. And I think an important thing would be, where are people going to find you again? Where can they find you and your company here?
Sure, creativelandstrategies.com.
Creativelandstrategies.com.
Yep.
Okay.
And you can reach our school on there under the education component. You can also reach out to us. We'll do a 15-minute consultation on any subject you want in real estate for free. And
Nice.
yeah, you can just book a time and we'll do that.
All right, Andrew. Yeah, it's been a real education here, and thank you so much for being on Real Estate Mavericks. And
You're
look
welcome,
forward to
Dougie.
speaking to you again.
Yep. Have a good
Yeah.
day.